Hello and welcome back. In this tutorial, we will be exploring the features available on the remaining window of Absinthe 5, LFO, which stands for Low Frequency Oscillator. In the LFO window, Absinthe provides up to 3 LFOs, which can be used for modulation. These oscillator-type modulators alter the parameters of the incoming signal cycle, causing it to swing its pitch, volume, position, or phase over time. The possibilities using LFOs are enormous, from a vibrato effect with consistent and periodic changes of pitch to a tremolo effect with its volume being repeatedly increased and decreased. We have already seen LFOs in action on the envelope window, and I really think there is no better way to imagine it than with this graphic display of the modulation effect. The 3 LFOs on the LFO window are built in the same way. The first menu starting from the top is the oscillator main section, where we can determine waveforms, oscillation rates, and phases, or apply a sample and hold module. The 3 following menus are called modulation sections. The first, channel parameters section, contains the parameters that are available by channel or module, for example, the pitch tones of the oscillator modules A, B, and C. The second menu holds the master parameters on the parameters that have a global influence on the master audio. The final menu establishes how the LFO's master depth, rate, and sample and hold rate can be modulated through macrocontrols and MIDI assignment. To analyze each of its parameters, let's create a simple wave sine oscillator by selecting New Sound from the File menu. The LFO can be turned on or off by pressing this upper left label. If you are not using any LFO, be sure to turn them off in order to preserve the CPU of your computer. The next switch is a mono or polyphonic mode selector. In the monophonic mode, the LFO will modulate all the voices. As per the polyphonic mode, every voice has its own LFO modulator. In this last case, modulating each voice separately can become even more complex when altering the phase of each voice. The waveform selector is already a well-known parameter. It displays a menu where you can choose the type of wave you want the oscillator to apply, from simple to morph and saved library waves. For now, let's keep the sine waveform so that everything is a little easier to understand. In this phase menu, you can set the phase with which the LFO waveform in polyphonic mode is started when a note is struck from 0 to 100. Next, you have that well-known beat switch and the rate menu, which establishes the speed of the LFO. With this sample and hold option, you can set a rate control parallel to the LFO rate in order to control the tapping points for as long as the module is active. The lower the frequency, the longer an individual value belonging to the LFO waveform will stay constant. To better understand these parameters, I am going to set the pitch value on the Channel Parameters menu to a value around 25. Next, I'll just play around with the rate value and shift the sample and hold option between on and off. Let's now move on to the channel parameters. This first pitch option is related to the pitch modulation depth you want to apply over each oscillator, from 0 to 72. Next, you have an inversion switch, and you get to select in which channel A, B, or C you want the pitch modulation to act over. These next three modulation parameters are editable, so you can choose from a very wide list of options which parameter other than pitch you want to modulate, but they work pretty much the same as the pitch parameter we've just browsed through. Let's, for example, use this channel volume option. As you can see, the signal coming from channel A is being modulated, with its volume shifting up and down. You can also assign this altered signal to other channels using the channel select buttons. Here you get two options, 1 and 2, that are related to the 1 and 2 slots on the patch window. This way, you can actually modulate, for example, the bandwidth of a bandpass filter that is set in any of these slots using the LFO. The Master Parameters menu behaves almost identically to the Channel Parameters menu. But, since they have a global effect on the master output signal, you won't find any channel switches. The first drop-down list has a number of options that vary from master time, feedback, wet, dry, and input options. The second option in the Master Parameters menu is set to pan. This type of modulation influences the left-right position as well as the front-back position on the surround sound field. Last, you have the controller menu. In this last section, you can set a macro control to influence the LFO parameters directly. The LFO parameters, which can be attributed to macro controls, are the master depth, LFO rate, and sample and hold rate we've seen before. These macro controls can be assigned in Perform window. Last, there is a retrigger option. This option is only applicable when the LFO is in monophonic mode. If the retrigger button is activated, a further modulation source menu appears beside it. Here, you can choose one of the 128 MIDI continuous controllers, or MIDI-CC, that the MIDI specifications put at your disposal. Remember, you can always apply 3 different LFOs and get them to modulate each channel, filter, or wave shaper in different ways to obtain a wide variety of results. And this ends up our LFO tutorial. Stay tuned to learn more about the mutation controls available on Absinthe 5.